on this Friday, March 28th. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's headlines. The Interior Ministry denies a report that a woman from an Arab country was arrested by unofficial security personnel and jailed at the Rafiq Hariri International Airport. Masked gunmen shoot a policeman in Tripoli in the second killing of a member of the security forces in just 2 days. And Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah is to meet with Obama as differences over Iran and Syria overshadow a decades-long Saudi-U.S. alliance. The Interior Ministry has denied a report that a woman from an Arab country was arrested by unofficial security personnel and jailed at the Rafiq Hariri International Airport. The denial comes in response to an article published in the Pan-Arab daily Ash-Sharq Al-Awsat this week, claiming that the woman was kept for several days in a secret jail lying several stories below the ground at the facility. The ministry statement said that Interior Minister Nuhad al-Mashnou personally contacted Hussein Shabakshi, the writer of the article, asking him about the identity of the woman. Shabakshi has alleged that Hezbollah members maintained a prison 2 stories below the ground in which they detained, interrogated and tortured people. He said the woman, who was traveling from Beirut to Jeddah, was held by Hezbollah for 72 hours for questioning. Masked gunmen have shot a policeman in the northern Lebanese city of Tripoli in the second killing of a member of the security forces in just 2 days. Friday's shooting comes a day after the new cabinet of the Lebanese Prime Minister Tamam Salam approved a security plan for the city, where at least 29 people have been killed in the past fortnight. Security sources said Boutros Baa was killed instantly when the gunman opened fire on his car around 5:30 in the morning, hitting him in the head. Fighting has flared in Tripoli this month between members of the Alawite sect, the offshoot of Shia Islam, and a majority of Sunni Muslims who have also clashed with security forces. The violence has been fueled by the civil war in neighboring Syria, where mostly Sunni rebels are battling to topple President Bashar al-Assad. President Michel Sleiman is urging the Lebanese armed forces to confront terrorists and criminals, no matter how much sacrifices they make. In a statement issued by the Babda Palace, Sleiman said all terrorist activities that target the members of the army and police will not stop those forces from implementing the decision of the government to preserve security and stability. The cabinet approved on Thursday a security plan for Tripoli and the northern areas of the Bekaa Valley bordering Syria. It instructed the armed forces to seize weapons caches and take all measures to arrest armed men in Tripoli, in addition to kidnappers and assailants involved in car theft in the Bekaa. Sleiman urged the armed forces to stick to the measures that they are taking in hotspots and not to be lenient with terrorists or criminals, no matter how many sacrifices they make, so that they preserve civil peace and security. In other local news, Prime Minister Tamam Salam says that partnership between the legislative and executive authorities is necessary to commemorate major political events. Following talks with Speaker Nabih Bideh in Ain al-Tine, Salam said, quote, "We are living in difficult circumstances which require continuous consultations." The day after his cabinet approved the security plan for Tripoli and northern areas of the Bekaa, Salam hoped that the government would be able to limit security incidents. He also expected injustice to end, saying perpetrators should be jailed to comfort the people and create stability in the country. He said if the country is unstable, then we will not be able to hold the polls in an effective way. Bideh is inquiring the parliamentary blocs on their intentions for the elections. Salam said in reference to contacts that the Speaker is making with MPs and political leaders to have successful polls. The United Nations is warning that armed groups are increasingly forging links across the border of Syria and Iraq, fueling sectarian tensions in a region that has suffered from years of bloodshed. Speaking at the UN Security Council, the special envoy to Iraq, Nikolai Mladenov, said the conflict in Syria is affording terrorist networks the occasion to forge links across the Iraq-Syria border and expand their support base. He said the combination of a divided leadership in Iraq, unresolved constitutional issues between communities, and the growing threat coming from Syria has created a fragile and explosive situation. Mladenov insisted the only way the violence could stop was through a political process that would bridge differences, increase development, and make the government more inclusive. Syria has failed to comply with the UN resolution calling for unimpeded humanitarian access to civilians throughout the country. This is according to Human Rights Watch. The group said that by refusing to allow aid to cross opposition-held border crossings, the Syrian government is undermining aid deliveries to hundreds of thousands of desperate people. In February, the UN Security Council urged all parties to the Syrian conflict to allow aid to cross conflict lines and borders to reach civilians. Since then, the Syrian government has allowed aid to enter the country through a regime-held border crossing with Turkey. And coming up next, YouTube ban causes concern in Turkey. Stay with us. Welcome back. Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah is to meet with United States President Barack Obama as differences over Iran and Syria overshadow a decades-long Saudi-U.S. alliance. The meeting on Friday comes as Saudi Arabia has strong reservations about attempts by Washington and other major powers to negotiate a deal with Iran on its nuclear program and disappointment over Obama's 11th-hour decision last year not to take military action against the Syrian regime over chemical weapons attacks. Saudi-U.S. relations, dating back 7 decades, are tense due to Washington's stances on the Middle East, especially Iran. This is according to Saudi analyst Abdullah Aziz Al-Sagr, who is heading the Gulf Research Center. The recent rapprochement between Tehran and Washington must not take place at the expense of relations with Riyadh. The interim agreement curbs Iran's controversial nuclear activities in exchange for limited sanctions relief and is aimed at buying time to negotiate a comprehensive accord. YouTube ban is causing a great concern as Turkey says it could block other social media if security is threatened. Social media expert says that Turkey's attempt to curb dissent by blocking access to YouTube will have the opposite effect. As history shows, people will take to the streets and seek out information wherever they can find it. Linda Tamim reports.
Turks on the streets raised concern over a widening social media ban as authorities blocked YouTube after a leaked recording of top security officials discussing possible military action in Syria was posted on the video sharing site. The anonymous posting was an audio file with photographs of the officials involved. It followed similar releases on social media in recent weeks that Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan has cast as a plot by his political enemies, particularly a Turkish Islamic cleric based in the United States, to unseat him ahead of the March 30th elections. Residents of Ankara say the social media ban was a breach of freedoms.
They can never curb freedom of information. We will find a way to breach the ban. This shows how much the government complies with the rules of democracy and freedoms. This is their mentality. There is nothing we can do, but we can get rid of them with people's votes.
There are a lot of media outlets that are close to them. Only a few media companies give information about the truth, and many people cannot access them. That's why the internet is important. Anyone can access it and anyone can obtain accurate and inaccurate information from there very quickly. That's why they want to block it. They want to stop communication.
I'm concerned about where the country is heading because it's heading to an autocratic rule, a dictatorship. This is not normal. The world is constantly changing in favor of democracy and social justice, whereas we are going the opposite way.
Dr. Darren Brabham, assistant professor at University of Southern California's Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism, says governments are constantly trying to prevent communication during periods of unrest, but it rarely works.
The governments try to shut down social media whenever there's dissent and unrest. It's happened in a couple of regimes around the world already, and so far it hasn't been as successful as the governments think that it will be. So ultimately I think information wants to be free and speech will get out. Whether it's through Twitter or YouTube, or other means, it'll still get out.
The ban on Twitter had already sparked outrage in Turkey and drawn international condemnation. Nevertheless, government sources say Turkey could also block access to other social media platforms if users publish recordings or documents which threaten national security.
The UN General Assembly has approved a resolution affirming Ukraine's territorial integrity and calling the referendum that led to Russia's annexation of its Crimean Peninsula illegal. The vote on the Ukraine-sponsored resolution was 100 countries in favor, 11 opposed, and 58 abstentions. The yes vote was higher than many diplomats had predicted, and the fact that more than half the 193 UN member states supported the resolution reflected widespread international opposition to Russia's military intervention and takeover of the strategic Black Sea region. Unlike the more powerful Security Council, resolutions in the General Assembly cannot be vetoed but are not legally binding. Russia has blocked action in the Security Council, where they have veto power as one of its 5 permanent members. This comes as Russia's defense minister says that all Ukrainian servicemen loyal to Kiev have left Crimea and all military installations on the Black Sea Peninsula are under Russian control. 20 years after an international criminal tribunal was established to prosecute crimes against humanity in the wake of the Rwandan genocide, the United Nations have called the mission a success. Speaking to reporters at UN headquarters, Assistant Secretary General and Registrar of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, Bonjani Majola, described the achievements of the court.
We were able, out of the 79 persons that actually stood trial, to get convictions for 62 of them and have only 14 acquitted. The question, of course, is, after all this, what can be said to have been the achievements of the ICTR? And there are many. Looking back, there are many achievements of the ICTR. I think the first one is that it was able to execute its mandate successfully, in the sense that it was to prosecute the leadership, and we did prosecute the leadership and have many of them punished and sentenced to long-term imprisonment. If the tribunal had not been established, many of these people would not have been brought to justice, because after the genocide, Rwanda didn't have the judicial capacity, but also it didn't have the capacity to go and look for them in all corners of the world, which the tribunal was able to do, and to bring them back and to try them and to punish them. We think that this is an achievement of the ICTR. But also, if one looks back, before the ICTY and the ICTR were established, the concept of international criminal justice was not certain. It was a doubtful concept. It is the ICTY and the ICTR that have actually given confidence that it is possible to have criminal justice at an international level. As a result, you've seen member states now establishing a permanent International Criminal Tribunal, the ICC, because we showed that it is possible to have criminal justice at an international level.
China says that it will protect the interest of families of passengers aboard the missing Malaysia airline plane presumed crashed in the southern Indian Ocean, and called for more information from Malaysia. An international air and sea task force hunting for the wreckage of the MH370 plane was redirected on Friday to an area about 1,100 kilometers north of where they have been searching for more than a week, after Australian authorities received new radar information from Malaysia. For more than a week, ships and surveillance planes have been scouring seas 2,500 kilometers southwest of Perth, where satellite images had suggested there could be debris from the flight, which went missing on March 8, with 239 people aboard. Foreign Ministry spokesman said China will never give up on any hope of searching in the ocean. And on that note, we end our bulletin for today. Let me remind you of our top stories. The Interior Ministry denies a report that a woman from an Arab country is arrested by unofficial security personnel and jailed at the Rafiq Hariri International Airport. Masked gunmen shoot a policeman in Tripoli in the second killing of a member of the security forces in just 2 days. And Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah meets with Obama as differences over Iran and Syria overshadow a decades-long Saudi-U.S. alliance. Those are your Friday headlines live on Future Television. From me and the team here, have a very nice weekend.